Everyone is familiar with The Witcher, and Geralt of Rivia is one of the most well-known video game characters. With all of the drama about the Netflix Witcher series, I wanted to take some time to go through the timeline of all the Witcher games. You probably already know that The Witcher was first a published book series, but I will only be discussing the things that are considered canon within inside the game's universe. This is a video game lore channel after all. We will start with basically the big bang of the Witcher series, called the alignment or conjunction of the spheres. The world of The Witcher is part of an infinite multiverse, despite the fact that most of the series takes place in one Earth-like realm. The conjunction of the spheres is a catastrophic event that occurs 1,500 years before the game's events. This event causes great chaos throughout many different worlds. This event seemingly breaks the walls connecting different dimensions in the universe, opening up dimensional doorways allowing a variety of monsters to enter Geralt's world. The conjunction is frequently told from the perspective of the elves of the world, because they are the only ones that are known to have kept records of the event. Humans appear in the world not long after all the monsters come through the dimensional doorways. And unsurprisingly, the humans wreak havoc throughout the world just like we do in real life. I am deeming this the takeover of humanity. A group of humans known as the Nords sail in on ships from uncharted waters, almost 1,000 years after the first human settlers arrived. They immediately start doing what humans do best, which is dispersing and subjugating other races. Some people develop the ability to communicate with the primordial force, which is ruled by specific elves, gnomes, and dwarves, and they are known as the elder races. With some training, these people become mages, which means they are adept at using magic. Other magic users, known as sources, are endowed with magical powers from birth that have potential to be incredibly strong, but their powers are incredibly challenging to control. Humans continue to colonize new territory, building their kingdoms on top of mostly elven-owned lands. An alliance of warrior monks known as the Witchers is formed to combat these invading monsters. Using an extensive list of mutagen plants to enhance their skills, they kill all kinds of beasts to help the Nords. To expand their numbers, the young boys are enlisted as Witchers at a young age, and they start their strict training right away. But in order for these children to become true Witchers, they have to survive a lethal concoction of mutagenic herbs. Only 3 out of 10 boys live usually, but the ones that do survive mutate and develop special Witcher magic, giving them quick healing, a longer life expectancy, superhuman strength, stamina and agility, as well as improved senses like night vision. Witchers can also cast spells instantly using signs. Witcher signs are a bit less powerful than a full-on mage, but they're still very effective. Sadly, the Order of the Witchers is short-lived. The Order split into various schools of Witchercraft, and the Witchers as a whole stopped completing contracts for the local populace. This is all because the vast majority of people fear Witchers. The Witchers are viewed by some as equally inhuman as elves, and to others, they might as well be any other monster lurking in the woods. And the rumor that Witcher training removes Witcher's emotions just makes this way worse. But unfortunately, against their better judgment, the Witchers are the only people that can take on these monsters attacking their towns. So both commoners and nobles seek their assistance on a regular basis. They do make sure to make their disgust very well known, which leads to some really interesting banter sometimes. The Four Kingdoms to the north and the Nilfgaardian Empire to the south are the two principal cultural pillars that the rest of humanity establishes on the continent. The Nords who live in Four Kingdoms have been fighting wars for hundreds of years, and when there's war, there's political drama. So there's some Game of Thrones style stuff happening. But the majority of these kind of events don't really amount to much in the grand scheme of things, similar to Game of Thrones. Over time, the Nilfgaardians in the south become incredibly powerful, It's unclear whether the Nilfgaardians were already present on the continent when the Nords arrived, or if both parties arrived in the south at the same time. The Nilfgaardians embrace many aspects of elven culture, while the northern kingdoms view non-humans as second-class citizens. Certain internal conflicts have arisen over the years in Nilfgaard. They establish a republic, followed by a return to monarchy, and while all the other kingdoms focus on trivial matters, Nilfgaard becomes a supreme power on the continent. Next, let's jump into what you probably clicked on this video for, and that is the adventures of Geralt. There have been many Witchers who have called the continent home over the years, but one of them rose to basically demigod status for good reason. People call him by many names: the Butcher of Blaviken, the White Wolf, Geralt of Rivia, or I just call him Gary because I'm weird. Geralt's story starts when he arrives at Castle Kaer Morhen, where his mother decided to leave him at the castle gates, because Geralt was seemingly the product of an unwanted pregnancy from a warrior that had his way with his mother. Luckily, the Witchers there took him in and enrolled him in Witcher training, as one of the many children selected for the Witcher trials. The young Witcher was advised, like other young Witchers, to pick a name that would bring reliability to the minds of his future customers. So despite not actually being from Rivia, he figured Rivia had a nice ring to it. While many of his fellow students perished during the trial of the grasses, Geralt was strong enough to complete the rest of his grueling training. The mages that oversaw the Witcher school noticed that Geralt was much more skilled than the other students, so they chose Geralt to give him some experimental mutagens, and he is the only Witcher that ever survived these extra mutations. The mutations wreaked havoc on his body for a while, eventually turning his hair ashen white, where he gets probably his coolest nickname, in my opinion, the White Wolf. Sometime prior to the beginning of the first game, Geralt becomes well known after an incident takes place in Blaviken, where he tries to prevent a bandit gang from seizing a market. Geralt successfully kills all the bandits and protects the villagers, but sadly these villagers were not aware of Geralt's rescue mission, so what they thought they were seeing was a wild white-haired man just cutting everyone's limbs off. So they did everything that they could to defend themselves, threw rocks at him, spit on him, called him names, and one of those names eventually became the Butcher of Blaviken. As the legend of Geralt's deeds grew, his track record as a cold-blooded killer solidifies. However, he eventually redeems himself when he frees one Princess Ada from a curse, the monster-turned daughter of Foltest, King of Temeria. As his adventures progress, Geralt develops connections with people all over the world, one of them being the womanizing bard Dandelion, and a dwarf swordsman named Zoltan Chive, each of which joined Geralt on countless adventures. Some time passes and Geralt comes across the new contract to find a genie in the Redanian kingdom. There he meets the witch Yennefer of Vengerberg. Although they are initially at odds with one another, their quest to outwit each other eventually turns flirtatious. Geralt, you dirty dog. Geralt uses the genie to grant his wish of intertwining his and Yennefer's fates, which also serves a dual purpose of stopping the genie from killing Yennefer, thereby solidifying the romantic theme of the series. The genie disappears after granting Geralt's wish. Geralt and Yennefer spend a year of peace in Vengerberg. However, after a while, Geralt becomes uneasy with Yennefer's possessive behavior, so one night Geralt makes a run to get some milk and leaves a rose behind as a parting gift. Heck yeah, Geralt. Know your worth, kings. Just so there's no confusion here, he just completely ghosts Yennefer. The next thing of note to occur in the timeline is Cirilla's entrance to the series. The throne of Nilfgaard has been usurped by a sorcerer, who has put a curse on Emir var Emrys, who is the Prince of Nilfgaard, who has also been expelled to the wilderness. Unbeknownst to the usurper, the curse that he put on Emir, which turns him into a hedgehog, was not as skillfully woven as they thought, because every night Emir returns to his human form. So Emir takes advantage of this and sneaks into Sentra's kingdom, where he finds Sentra's king in need of help in the woods. He then very cleverly invokes the Law of Surprise with the king. The Law of Surprise is a very confusing kind of thing, but don't worry, I'll do my best to make it as simple as possible. Basically, whenever someone saves someone's life, they can invoke the Law of Surprise, which puts the saved person in debt to their savior, and they must repay this debt with the first thing that they acquire with any value. Without the king of Cintra being aware of it, his wife back at the castle has a daughter, which Emir waits 15 years to cash in on his Law of Surprise. He takes the king's daughter as his bride. In the end, the two have a happy marriage, even though Emir still looks like a werehog during the day. So where exactly does our hero Geralt fit into this whole situation? At some point, Geralt is invited to a party at the castle and meets Emir, and he agrees to help him lift his curse. Geralt easily lifts his curse with a Witcher ritual, and since the Law of Surprise worked out very well for Emir, he decides to reward the Witcher through the Law of Surprise. A few years later, Emir decides it's time to retake the Nilfgaard throne. And this is the part of the story where we get to know Ciri a lot better. She is a Cintra native but dislikes the princess lifestyle. Since birth, she never really fit in with the more classically girly girls in Cintra, so she basically just becomes another dude. A very pretty dude though, I'll give her that. Eventually the time comes for her to be married off. Of course, Ciri's having absolutely none of that and flees into the woods. Somewhat fortuitously, Geralt just so happens to be in the woods that she runs into doing, Geralt things. When he comes across Ciri squared off with a giant centipede of all things, Geralt swiftly fells the beast. And even though Ciri originally doesn't want anything to do with Geralt, he has now shown her human kindness. So Ciri's like, yep, I'm your problem now. Geralt doesn't exactly like this dynamic, being a lone white wolf and all, so he just runs away while she's asleep. But at least when he gets to town, he hires someone to take Ciri back to Cintra. And Ciri reluctantly resumes her life in Cintra. That is until Emir's Nilfgaardian Empire invades Cintra. Ciri's father Emir is on a warpath to take over Cintra and reclaim his daughter. In the midst of all the mayhem, Ciri successfully flees again, finding refuge with some strangers that live in the woods. Possibly due to some weirdness with the Law of Surprise intertwining Geralt and Ciri's fates, they come across each other again. Realizing that this is probably the case, Geralt decides to bring Ciri back with him to Kaer Morhen, where he begins to teach her the ways of a Witcher. Early on in training, Geralt realizes how powerful of a magic user Ciri naturally is, and at one point she loses all control and becomes possessed by some supernatural voice. Geralt obviously is shocked and confused by this, so he seeks the knowledge of Triss Merigold to try to better identify and control Ciri's abilities. I find it kind of funny that he still wants absolutely nothing to do with Yennefer, so he decides to get assistance from Triss. Ciri is a sorcerer, Triss surmises, and she requires assistance from someone else who's more experienced with this kind of stuff. Ciri goes to the temple of Melatel, where Melatel herself trains her. Emir finally tracks Ciri down to the temple, where Ciri uses one of her newly learned interdimensional portals to flee. However, being new to this sort of thing, she's all alone and completely lost. And sadly for Ciri, the Wild Hunt just so happens to be in the area that she teleported to. And they use the scent of her elder blood to track her, and her elder blood is the source of her power. And of course the Wild Hunt has some rather devious plans once they get a hold of Ciri and synthesize her blood. The Wild Hunt are an ancient elven race from another planet, where a prophesized ice age has taken over everything. Eredin, their king, decides that the best hope for his people would be to invade and conquer Ciri's world. He also requires Ciri's portal powers to be able to move thousands of his people across dimensions. Ciri fumbles around with her portal powers and somehow eventually makes it back to Geralt and Yennefer, but her father Emir has been tracking her this whole time. Emir storms in demanding to take Ciri back to Nilfgaard, where he has some plans to get her pregnant. We'll just move on from that, it's strange. Geralt has an expected response to this and basically tells Emir to frig off. Emir takes that literally and just snatches up Ciri and runs away. But pretty quickly he grows a conscience and decides to let Ciri go back. All the while, the leader of the Wild Hunt has been scheming. He decides the best way to trap Ciri is to go after the ones that she loves. And to them, Yennefer seems like a good enough target, so they kidnap her. Geralt is understandably a bit miffed about this, so he gathers all of his friends and they go after the Wild Hunt, where they engage in a losing battle. Geralt, the White Knight that he is, offers himself in exchange for Yennefer. Their leader agrees to these terms and makes the swap. Everyone else is free to go, however, Geralt serves some time as a rider of the Wild Hunt, which is kind of badass and I didn't really realize happened. Like, Geralt's already scary and he's on this like Lich King arc right now, and I don't want to meet him in an alley. And as soon as Geralt was taken away, Ciri was already plotting on how to get him back, because Papa. You are like Papa. So Ciri tracks down the Wild Hunt, sneaks into their camp, does some portal stuff, and gets Geralt. A good swath of time passes here and many different adventures occur. I'd like to leave some things for, people to play the game and or read the book series themselves. Don't come for me. And don't fret, because I do plan on making many more Witcher videos. Anyhow, I've been your host Vizkla, and I appreciate you tuning in. If you enjoyed this video, please consider leaving a like. And if you'd like to see more of my content, click on over to my channel page where I'm probably live streaming right now. I added in a hidden image somewhere in this video. If you find the hidden image, please leave a comment detailing what it is and the timestamp. I'll pin the comment of the first person to find it. Good luck.